Talking about voter fraud. We talk about a lot of things going on in the news every day, and the guy we have with us on the line right now, I've been wanting to get him on for a while, and certainly a pleasure to have him on. He is a Trump campaign spokesman, also former White House Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley joining us right now on the line. Hogan, I appreciate you joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. Thanks for the time.
Well, Hogan, we know you're a very busy guy, so a lot of questions to get to in a very short period of time. Let's start with Nevada, Hogan, if I may. As you know, the Trump campaign has sued Nevada over this mail-in election bill. I guess my question to you would be this, because a lot of people in Nevada want to get some information on this. It's confusing. Why is Trump praising Florida's mail-in voting system and now suing Nevada over a similar situation? Can you kind of clear this up for us and tell us what's going on?
Sure, it's two different things. I mean, absentee voting has been around for a while, and it's a mechanism that has been tested. It has been proven to be, a good way to cast a ballot. If you're not going to be somewhere, you request absentee, you get it, and then you send it in. It goes through barcodes, it goes through signature checks, matches, all that type of stuff. What Nevada did was completely different. They had a couple of just really difficult things to try and explain because they make no sense. First of all, you guys, I'm going to say you guys affectionately, there's no signature matching anymore. So I can go in and just sign something, and I don't have to prove it's me with my signature. It also legalizes ballot harvesting. So I can just go into a nursing home, for example, and pick up 500 ballots, and then me take them in as an operative to the polling location. It's not someone who works for the government. I can just do that as a partisan hack for some campaign if I wanted to. So it's completely fraught with danger and fraud. Also, Nevada is now mailing millions of ballots out whether you requested one or not. Like I said with the absentee, you have to request an absentee ballot. You guys are saying, no, you don't even need to request one. We're just going to mail you one. Oh, and we're going to leave polling locations open on Election Day, meaning you theoretically could double vote.
Sure.
And also, one thing that I think is the most egregious is that, in essence, you have legalized voting 7 days after Election Day, meaning you can take ballots into a polling place after that Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So, in essence, what a Democrat operative could do is wake up on Wednesday morning and go, wait a minute, Donald Trump's winning by 100 votes. Go get me 101.
Understood.
We're going to turn this thing, and we have 7 days to do it? I mean,
Understood.
Crazy.
Understood. So here's how I would respond to that, and this is not me. This is the Nevada Secretary of State's office that says there is signature verification. So that's number one. I don't know, who's telling the truth here. I'm just telling you what the Nevada Secretary of State's office is saying, and they're also saying that there is no massive voter fraud in the state of Nevada. It hasn't happened. They've been doing it for decades. What would be your response to that?
They haven't been doing universal mail-in voting for decades. This is brand new, and that's one of the things I think is so problematic. You're trying to do it 90 days before an election. That's what's crazy here. You're systematically trying to change the entire voting structure of a state with just no time to catch up to what exactly would occur here. And let's be clear, if you're literally leaving voting open for a week after an election, that's just a problem, period. The American people, the people of Nevada, want to be able to know that when they vote, their one vote counts. Mm-hmm. They want to know that it's not going to go through 10 different hands. They want to go through it sets of hands. It's not going to go through a process by which no vote in that state has ever been tested or attempted in this manner, and it makes it very difficult to track these types of things, and it causes all types of potential for fraud and abuse and cheating, and you just can't do that heading into an election. If you want to try it over the course of several years, like many states have, or decades, to try and make sure they get it right, that's one thing. It's another thing just to do it all encompassing in one fell swoop in a piece of legislation that was passed in the middle of the night.
So Hogan, I know that Kayleigh was asked. This question at one of the press conferences recently. So I want to ask you the same question, and I think it's a fair one. You tell me if you agree or not. People who have voted by mail in the Trump administration, you know the list. Attorney General Barr, Mike Pence has, Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump. Kayleigh has been doing it for 10 years. Wilbur Ross, Betsy DeVos, Jared Kushner. I'm just naming a few, and Donald Trump is on that list as well. So what would you say to people out there that would say, why is it okay for them to do it and not for me?
It's okay for you to do it if you do it the exact same way, which is request absentee voting, and then you get that piece of paper in the mail. You sign for it. There's checks in place to make sure that vote is not tampered with. This is completely different. I mean, this is getting a ballot in the mail after Election Day with no postmark on it. You have no knowledge of when that thing came in. And this is exactly what's happening in New York. We are 6 weeks past an election in 2 congressional districts, and we still don't know who won those elections. Mm-hmm. We have no idea, because what Governor Cuomo did was sent out ballots that were already prepaid with postage, so they're not postmarked. So when they come into the polling place, you have no idea when those things were mailed. They could have been mailed days after the election. And I have to say, the irony of that question from the press was they accused this president of floating an idea of changing the date of the election when Democrats themselves in 10 states have sued. Nevada just passed, literally changing the date of the election. You can get votes into the totals after election
day.
Fair
enough.
That is a serious problem.
This is my question now, and I think it's an important one. Do you feel like it can happen on either side of the spectrum, Democrats or Republicans, when it comes to mail-in voting? Would you agree that it's just as easy for a Republican to commit voter fraud as it is a Democrat? Can we all agree on that?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Well, then I'm glad to hear you say that. JD, go ahead.
Now, I will caveat that with this.
Fair enough.
Do I think Democrats are more likely to do it and cheat? Yes,
I agree.
Absolutely. But that's a different conversation to have.
Okay, JD, go ahead.
So a lot of publications, political especially, they are saying that Nevada is totally out of play for Republicans. What do you think about that, especially for the 2020 election? What do you think about that, and what does the Trump campaign think about that right now? Is Nevada in play, in your opinion?
I think there are a lot of states in play, quite frankly, that the media are missing, but also you kind of see some of that with some of the announcements from the Biden campaign in their recent ad buys. They were pointing to the fact that they're now buying advertising in Minnesota, for example, New Hampshire, for example,
right.
Colorado, for example, where they were pretty solid for Democrats in years past, but the President Trump just lost those narrowly as a candidate. So we're playing in those states. The Democrats understand that, and one of the things we've been pushing is not only holding the map we had before, but expanding into some of these other states, because the president's issues that he has stood up for and supported, the president's accomplishments cut across party lines. I mean, the economy was running gangbusters for everybody. COVID attacked this country from China. It attacked everybody. The culture of this country is being attacked by the left as being hateful and apologizing for America at every turn. And this president disagrees with that. So I think that a lot of the states you're talking about are in fact in play. Nevada's one of those two, because the president's message is one of unification, one of patriotism, and it's uplifting for people to understand that we're going to be better off after this virus and after this economic collapse, thanks to the president's leadership and thanks to his policies.
So, Hogan, I'm not a journalist. I'm a talk show host. I'm an independent. I'm speaking to you as an independent. And all I can do is tell you, and maybe you can convince me. I don't know. But I'm telling you why the president frustrates me, and maybe you could help me out with this. And again, I'm not pretending to be a journalist. I'm a talk show host. I'm an opinionated talk show host. Okay,
I got it.
So he retweets this voodoo doctor who believes in demon sperm. Okay, and he talks and gives her credibility. He retweets a fan yelling out "white power." I know he says he didn't hear it when everyone did, but I'll believe him on that. He holds a coronavirus press conference and he brings up the fact about possibly injecting yourself with disinfectants. He basically, in a sense, defends the Confederate flag, and what I mean by that is he attacked NASCAR on Twitter, and and he doesn't have an opinion on the Confederate flag, which I think we all should agree is, it's a symbol of hatred and slavery. I know you just mentioned unification. Those things that I just mentioned, they bother me. I'm only speaking for myself as an independent. Shouldn't it bother all Americans? To me, this is troubling. Don't you wish he just got off of Twitter?
First of all, that list you just laid out makes it very difficult for me to believe you're an independent, but I'll take you at your word, too.
Well, what did I say that wasn't correct? What did I say that you think was factually inaccurate?
Several things. Number one is he
tell me.
never stood up for the Civil War monuments or the Confederate flag. What he said was he's for the First Amendment and free speech. He also said in that same clip he doesn't like the Black Lives Matter flag either, but he thinks that's okay for them to have because of the First Amendment. That's one thing you mentioned that I think was incorrect.
But he asked.
Also, he mentioned injecting something into your body that was like Clorox. Not what he said either. That was debunked many times by fact checkers and other people. So that's just a media machination trying to sway the public in the wrong way.
So Hogan, can I interject if I may real quickly if I may? So he attacked NASCAR for banning the Confederate flag, and then in several interviews he was asked about the Confederate flag. He said he didn't have an opinion either way. My question to you is, as the President of the United States, everybody should agree that the Confederate flag is a symbol of hatred, slavery, and bigotry. Why can't the president just admit that? How can the President of the United States have no opinion on the Confederate flag?
Look, he's given that opinion many times. He says he doesn't have one, but that it's a First Amendment issue. Also, he was talking about NASCAR impugning their viewers or their supporters by basically calling them racist in the statement. He said he disagreed with that. He didn't believe the people who watch NASCAR are racist, and he thought that characterization was wrong. So that's the type of thing that the media keep trying to push because they themselves want to divide. This president has done more for the African American, Asian American, Hispanic American community than anybody else, with record low unemployment. Women were employed at record levels too. Let's not forget, it's this president who literally allowed African Americans, Jewish people, and others into his country clubs when no one in South Florida was doing it. He did the same thing in Bedminster when no one in
I'm
New
not
Jersey
going to
was
disagree
doing
with
it.
you.
So this is absolutely ridiculous.
I'm not going to disagree with you on some policy. I'm just coming from an independent perspective on some of the things he said on Twitter and some of the things I've listed that have bothered me. That's all I'm simply saying. I guess we could.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I'm just pointing out that there are conversations to be had out there about the future of this country. There's no question. And
sure.
Elections are about choices.
Right.
And when you take a look at what this president was able to accomplish in every single front, economically, from a healthcare standpoint, from a protection of our culture standpoint, it's pretty clear that the choice the American people need to make is one of prosperity and a pathway forward. This president's offered that. Joe Biden's been in elected office for half of a century. It's 50 years worth of failure, and he's trying to run a campaign right now from his basement. He only pops up from the hidey hole every once in a while to say crazy things about children loving to rub his leg hair and how Arizona is a great city, and
Okay, but hold on a second, Hogan. Hold on a second. Do you really believe that Joe Biden is a pedophile, or Joe Biden? Maybe he's a little touchy-feely. I'll give you that, and
Brian,
at times inappropriate.
I have seen him.
Not the implication.
I
said it's just weird stories.
Right,
when he's off script, there are serious problems. That's why you see the left already trying to say, I probably really shouldn't debate. I mean, he had a major mistake he made this morning on some TV channel accusing a host of doing cocaine. I mean, he's got all types of things
listen, Hogan,
scripted in front of him.
Hogan, I will give you that. I will give you that. Donald Trump, there's a reason why Donald Trump won in 2016, and I think a lot of Democrats are concerned when Joe Biden gets up there on a stage with Donald Trump. I think a lot of Democrats will have concerns for that. And you know what? Rightfully so, Hogan. I will certainly agree with you on that one. But you are, again, you're the Trump campaign spokesman. So if somebody comes up to you, like myself, and says, well, wait a second, Donald Trump said, Mexico, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. We know Mexico didn't pay for the wall. He talked about Hillary Clinton, we're going to lock her up. We know that didn't happen. We talked about repealing Obamacare. Let me ask you about that specifically. Over 2 weeks ago, he said to Wallace in an interview, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a replacement for Obamacare. Where is it?
Obviously, a question for the White House is they're trying to come up with a good health care policy because we know Obamacare is an abject failure. And again, you're making my point for me, which is I thought Obamacare fixed health care. Remember? It was Joe Biden who said it was a big effing deal in a hot mic moment with
I remember.
President Obama.
Yes.
So is health care fixed or not? So it's up to this president to pick up all the shattered pieces of the previous administration, and he's done that. You're conflating a lot of issues. You're not necessarily characterizing them in a proper way. But as I said before, let's just be clear about a few things, okay? As you're an independent, you're trying to look at this. most campaigns, as you guys know, are done in the abstract. Like, I'm going to do this. I really want to perform this way. I want this to happen. You don't have to guess in this election how Joe Biden's economy would look. We saw it for 8 years. Depressed wages, 60,000 manufacturing plants closed, 3.5 million jobs leaving American citizens going to China because of Joe Biden, 850,000 jobs gone because of Joe Biden's NAFTA. Donald Trump comes in, turns the whole entire economy around. You see more jobs than there are people to fill them. You see record highs in the stock market. You see tax cuts. You see manufacturing jobs, 500,000 come back to this country. It was a complete reversal. And now as they're trying to get out of COVID and restore the economic strength that Donald Trump built, I mean, he rebuilt it once, he can do it again. Joe Biden's first speech about getting things back on track is to push a $4 trillion tax cut. I mean, a tax increase. Hillary Clinton ran on $2 trillion increased in taxes. Joe Biden took one look at that and said, $2 trillion? Hold my beer. I'm going to do 4. And on top of that, I'm going to also do full-on amnesty to allow tens of millions of illegal alien citizenship, meaning you're going to flood the job market with cheap labor as well, pushing out the American worker. And in fairness, I think the only American worker Joe Biden's ever fought for so that they had a job was Hunter, but that doesn't necessarily count either because that was for a Chinese company. So when you take a look at the two records side by side, it's pretty clear which one's been looking out for you, not just for your family, for your job, and your American way of life. It's Donald Trump, whereas Joe Biden is against all of them, pushing and now embracing the radical left agenda items of the Ilhan Omars and the Rashida Tlaibs and the Bernie Sanders of the world. It's crazy that so many of the police unions, for example, were supporting Biden and Obama in the last 2 cycles. Now they're coming on board with the president because their own words said they were tired of getting punched in the face. They wanted someone to support law and order and safety and security. This president does that. Joe Biden doesn't. It's pretty clear and it's pretty stark. And we think in the next 90 days of this election, we're going to make that choice pretty clear for the American people. Independents, Democrats, and Republicans, all the same groups that catapulted Donald Trump to the presidency the first time.
Hogan, another pollster question for you. There's been a lot of conversation just in general about how the polls are fake. And Donald, and I'm a Trump supporter. I'm the Trump supporter of this particular group. Brian obviously expects perfection from the president. I'm not in that same boat. I'm a huge fan of his policy and a number of other things. But Donald Trump, he consistently mentions how internal polling is showing totally different results. Can you explain what that internal polling consists of?
I'm not going to talk about our internals because we don't get into specifics on that. I can just point to this. So much of the media is talking about the current polling. A lot of the numbers show we're about 8 points higher than where Obama was at this time in the last years of his first term as well. Same polling. The methodology of this stuff is so bad, and I'll give you a great example. In 2016, they polled about 36% Democrats as they left the polling places. So exit polls were representative of 36% Democrat. Now they're polling 46% Democrat. It's 10 percentage points higher, and national polls are junk in general because they take 10% of their respondents from the state of California. Love it, hate it. It's not necessarily representative of the rest of the country. So the polling really is skewed, and what they're trying to do is basically depress the Trump voter and try and let them think that this is an ungettable, an unwinnable election, and that's just not the case. The enthusiasm, the excitement is so much on this president's side. We saw 1.1 billion views across our social media platforms, and that's with little or no presidential engagement, directly. Joe Biden literally does, on-camera internet stuff all the time, and he's pulling 19 views. I'm pretty sure 17 of those people watching were members of the media just trying to donate. The other 2 were staffers.
Well, that could be.
The whole thing is collapsing because the excitement is for our side.
Okay, well, I will say this, and I know you just talked about polling, but Fox News, ABC, Washington Post, Harvard, CBS, even Rasmussen has Donald Trump trailing right now. But let's move on.
Rasmussen does not have Trump trailing.
Yes, he does. The last poll
doesn't.
Okay, well, the last poll I saw, he did. But anyway, those other polls that I mentioned. But let's move on. We only got a couple more minutes, Hogan, and we appreciate your time. Let's talk a little about hydroxychloroquine. hydroxychloroquine, my favorite subject to talk about. So you have the Assistant Secretary at the Department of Health that says that it's time to move on from hydroxychloroquine. You know what Dr. Fauci has said about this. Why is the president still pushing this drug when there is no gold standard out there? There are absolutely no gold standard research out there that would suggest that this drug works.
Couple things. First of all, I understand the western side of this country is adamantly opposed to so many on the eastern side of this country. But Yale, for example, there's a doctor over there who pointed out that he thought it was pretty effective in certain circumstances. There have been a lot of studies that pointed to that too. But that's really not the issue here. The fact is, it doesn't matter what the president likes or dislikes. The media is going to take the opposite tact. CNN's own anchors, own network, tweeted different stories saying there's some evidence that hydroxychloroquine works. And then they come out, the president says, hey, look at this. It looks like this could potentially help. Work with your doctor. This is a personal decision, but you need to talk to your physician before you start taking this thing. And then they changed their tune and started tweeting out how bad it was. So this is a situation in which you have an unprecedented, unforeseen global pandemic coming into this country. This president took early, bold, decisive action to try and get this thing under control, to ramp up testing, to get our PPE in order to refill that stockpile you hear so much about. And we had anecdotal evidence and, quite frankly, scientific evidence from many in the medical community saying this was a potential drug that could help some people. Why wouldn't you have that conversation with your doctor and take a look at it? But to say that the president is pushing hydroxychloroquine is not accurate. He's simply pointing to different situations in which if a story comes out, if a doctor says this looks good, he's using his social media platform to say, hey, this may work for you. Go talk to your doctor and figure it out.
I would just ask this. You mentioned bold and Trump's response, and people can agree or disagree with that statement. We'll let the listeners decide. But if it's so bold, then how come we have more deaths than anywhere else in the world? We have a fourth of all cases of anywhere else in the world globally. That would be my question to you, Hogan.
Couple of things. Number one, the way you combat these things, the way you stop these things, pandemics, are with information. China lied to the world. The WHO covered it up. The president found out about it.
I agree.
Now we're doing tough things with China and the WHO, whereas Joe Biden says he wants to refund all the money to the WHO. So if we're keeping score, he wants to defund the police but refund the WHO, right. Does Joe Biden, but that's not the point. The point is, early on when we were talking about shutting down flights from China and Europe, Joe Biden said that was racist and xenophobic. 2 months he said that. Then he had to come out and say, you're right. I think Donald Trump was correct, and the doctors are all saying it saved millions of lives. Thanks a lot. But when the president was talking about this during the State of the Union address, Nancy Pelosi, remember, she tore that thing to shreds. Then she went out to Chinatown in California with no mask, mind you, and said this president knows what he's talking about. Everyone needs to come out and have a good time. Also, we had crazy Cuomo on the East Coast leaving his state open 7 days after everybody else. You had Mayor de Blasio of New York keeping gyms open, heading over there to do curls for the girls. So everyone knows that state was wide open. And then 65% of the cases in this country came from seating in New York. So it's pretty obvious that the media continue to push Governor Cuomo's response as the paragon of the right way to do things, when in actuality they saw more deaths than anybody else, almost 40,000 deaths. And let's not forget, at the time, we knew it disproportionately affected those with comorbidities and the elderly. What did Governor Cuomo do with that information? He forced elderly people with COVID back into nursing homes. That is unfathomable to think. And now he's going around and being touted by the media as the right way to do it. So the fact is, this president did take bold action. He did make it decisive. And for the media to try and claim on January 1 they were ringing in the new year with champagne and N95 masks is completely false. They didn't wear masks in totality in the White House briefing room until the first part of May, after the president had already given the guidance from the CDC on April 5th or April 3rd, and on March 31st had even said wear masks then.
Understood.
So this whole revisionist history is just laughable.
Well, I'll tell you what, Hogan, I am an independent. I don't know if you'll be able to sway me or not, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get you on the show again sometime down the road. Hogan, I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you taking some time to join us and answering our questions, and we really do hope we can have you on again down the road as we get closer to the election. I know you got another interview to do in a couple minutes here, so we'll let you go. But, Hogan, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Hogan.
There you go. That's Hogan Gidley, Trump campaign spokesman and former White House deputy press secretary. His people are bugging us a little bit. He had to get off the phone, but he's very long-winded, which we appreciate, by the way. But we appreciate Hogan Gidley taking some time to join us.